I wish I were blind. I wish I could see his love for me as true. I wish I could understand that the one I call my husband will be unfaithful even to my shadow. It was midnight, there was silence everywhere, but a storm was raging in her heart. She was sitting on a corner of the bed, with her mobile phone in her hands, on which were flashing pictures of her husband and secretary. Pictures that she had never seen even in her dreams. Such indecency, such betrayal. She felt as if her breath had stopped, as if the earth had come out from under her. These are the same hands that I had held and trusted in the journey of life. And this is the same face that I had thanked God for seeing. Today the same hands are touching someone else's body. And the same face is smiling at someone else. She was silent for a moment, then said softly, "This office, this business, I built everything, and you have wasted everything on such a woman, Dia, who was a lowly employee in your office until yesterday." Tears flowing from her eyes, trembling voice and heartbreak, all spoke at once. On the other hand, the man, that is, her husband, was laughing and sipping whiskey with his secretary in a hotel room. The secretary said softly, "Sir, now everything is ours, right?" He laughed. "Yes, I mean, yours. Everything. She is just a wife with a name, emotional, weak and clueless. She knows nothing." But what did he know that the woman he had considered weak now knew everything? And she knew that revenge was the only salve for her wounds. She had spent the whole night awake. She could not sleep nor breathe. Every moment, those pictures, those messages, those words that she had taken out of her husband's mobile phone were tearing her heart to pieces. "You are so beautiful, you are the queen of my heart, you are my real wife." These were the words of her husband. But the addressee was his secretary. And that wife, the one who prayed for him every day, who took care of him from breakfast to nightwear every morning, she was nowhere in her imagination. She looked at the picture of her husband on the wall of the room. The picture was smiling, but there were tears in her eyes. "You asked for everything. Gave it to you. You asked for business, I entrusted it. You asked for trust, I trusted you with my eyes closed. And you erased me from my existence." The next morning she got up and stood in front of the mirror. For the first time today, she felt like a weak shadow instead of a woman. But the next moment, her face glowed with determination. "I won't say anything. Not yet. I will give you the pain that stings not with words, but with consequences." She decided to go to the office. Months later she was going to the business office. The office that was in her name, but whose every file, every key, was in her husband's hands. On the other hand, her husband was sitting in a cafe with his secretary, talking about preparations for a big party. "Just after last night's party, our new project will be signed. And then, billions of profit, a new world, a new life." The secretary bowed and smiled. "Sir, then you have to leave that wife. All this won't happen in secret." The husband hesitated a little. Yes, I will leave. As long as this project is signed." He didn't know that the project of destiny had been signed, but against it. At the party the next day, something was going to happen that would blow everyone's minds. And most of all, that cheating husband. It was morning. There were light clouds in the sky, as if nature was also waiting for a storm today. The woman, who had been sobbing in her bed until yesterday, was going to the office in her car today with a calm face and silent lips. The driver asked softly, "Ma'am, it's been a long time you haven't come. Everyone will be surprised." She smiled softly and said, "Surprise is a good thing. When the truth comes as a surprise, then faces change and the mask comes off." As soon as she reached the office, she went straight to the conference room. All the staff were instructed that tomorrow's party would be in her name. No mention of any CEO name, no mention of any manager. Just the name of the owner and herself. "Ma'am, does the boss know about this decision?" a senior manager asked fearfully. "Sir." She smiled, but there was fire in her eyes. "Sir who?" Who sat in my shadow and bowed at someone else's feet? Who stole my identity? Now I will put a storm in his identity. On the other hand, her husband and secretary were busy preparing for the party. The secretary wore a red dress, elegant heels and diamond earrings, which the husband had gifted her last week, with the money that belonged to his wife's company. His wife's blood and sweat. Tomorrow night will be ours. The secretary leaned over and whispered. The husband said confidently, "And that woman, she is finished now. She doesn't dare to come here again." What did they know that yesterday night? The infidelity of love, the corpse of trust, and the strength of a woman would all come together. At night, the wife opened her old locker. The files, the documents, the power of attorney, all the evidence, which a husband thought his wife knew nothing about. Today everything was in his hands. There were tears in his eyes. But those tears were not of weakness, but of determination. Now the spectacle will begin. And tomorrow night, a truth will be revealed amidst the applause that will turn all your light into darkness. It was 7 in the evening. The party hall was sparkling. Precious crystal lights, red carpets, expensive suits, waves of perfume. And all around were famous names from the business world, who had all come to celebrate this new deal, which was a billion-dollar project. The husband and the secretary stood at the entrance. Both smiled and held each other's fingers, and began to welcome the guests. "This is my wife," the husband would say proudly to each visitor, and the secretary would bow gracefully and greet them. The real wife. She had no name, no existence, no mention, as if she had never been. The secretary looked extremely beautiful today. Even the office staff were surprised that the boss called her wife in front of everyone. Some kept their voices low. Some shyly glanced away. But no one could say anything, because everyone knew that the face of power was wearing a mask of lies. Then, at 8 o'clock at night, when the husband was going up on stage to welcome everyone, a knock sounded at the door. Every eye turned towards the door. A woman in white entered. Such dignity and simplicity. There was no tears in her eyes, fire. She was the real wife. After a long time, standing with the same husband in the company, amidst the lies that the same husband had made up, announcing her existence. Someone from the guests said softly, This is the real owner of the company." Someone else said, This is the one, without whose signature this business file cannot even be opened." The husband's face turned pale. He immediately let go of the secretary's hand. Sweat on his eyelids, a storm in his heart, and his tongue as if it had stopped. The wife slowly started walking towards the stage. With each step, her husband's breath caught in his throat. Finally she reached the stage. Looking her husband in the eyes, she simply said, "Did you forget me? I am the one who honored you. And now, your disrespect is my right." The guest was surprised, the husband was embarrassed, and the secretary slowly started to back away. The stage was silent. There were more than 200 people in the hall. But as if everyone's voices had fallen silent, only one woman stood there. In a white dress, with a determined look in her eyes, a blue folder in her hand. She held the microphone and spoke softly. "Thank you everyone, welcome. This party is dedicated to the success of my company, the company I founded, every file of which bears my signature, and every pillar of which stands on my trust." People looked at each other in surprise. Up until now, they had thought that the company was being run by the husband. But now, the picture was changing. The husband wanted to step forward and say something. But the wife raised her hand and stopped him. "Be quiet. Because now it's not your turn to speak. It's the truth." She opened the folder. It contained all the documents that her husband had signed and transferred property worth millions to the secretary. "These are the papers on which you threw dust in my eyes. and spread wealth for someone else. And these are the evidences that will expose you to the world today. The secretary's complexion turned pale. She started to back away. But her wife's eyes stopped her. And here are the videos, which my office cameras saved, where a husband and his secretary not only made fun of my office, but also crushed my very being. She pressed the button on the remote. The videos started playing on the projector. The husband and the secretary, laughing, sharing secrets, and even the moment when he says, "The real wife, just a piece of paper. Everything is you." It was as if an earthquake had hit the hall. The guests stared. Some put their hands on their foreheads. Some whispered. This was a dirty game. The wife put down the microphone, looked at her husband and said, "You denied my existence. Today I will destroy your honor, but within the bounds of the law." She handed over another file in her hand, which contained a complete description of the divorce, the eviction from the business, and the legal proceedings. The husband's hands were shaking. "You are no longer my husband, nor part of any decision of this company, nor of any of my dreams. Go away. And now if you ever have to come to a party, then don't come without an invitation. This honor is no longer yours." The party was over. Every guest had left with surprise, shame, and a lesson in their hearts. The husband was sitting in a corner of the stage. His face was drenched in sweat. His eyes were downcast, and life seemed to have slipped out of his hands. The man, who had been seeking life in the arms of his secretary until yesterday, was disgraced in the eyes of the world today. The secretary had quickly left. Her eyes were clearly saying, "I only wanted profit. Now you have nothing left." The wife silently handed all those files to the court's legal representative, and got into the car and left the office. The next day, newspapers, social media, business channels. There was only one news everywhere. Loyal wife exposes conspiracy of unfaithful husband and secretary. Real owner of business brings cheating husband to the street after divorce and eviction. Woman is not only love, but also justice. The husband's phone had rang and gone silent. The ones who used to hang around him till yesterday, today were not even listening to the phone. He called the secretary. "Hello, Risha. Please, don't leave me. I have nothing left, all you are." But a cold voice came from there. "You have nothing left. And I don't belong without something. Goodbye." The call ended. She collapsed on the couch, as if she had ceased to exist. On the other hand, the wife quietly said a few sentences to the media outside the court. "I only fought for the truth. I did not want revenge. I wanted the truth to prevail. Today I have found myself. And every woman like me should know. Silence is honor, but not weakness." After that, she disappeared from the media for several days. But the world began to remember her as a symbol of courage, patience, and awareness. And the husband, in a dilapidated apartment, staring at pictures of the past, lost in solitude, and drowning in regret. The soft morning sun was filtering through the window and entering the room. After a long time, she woke up today from a peaceful sleep. No fear, no shadow of infidelity, just a feeling. I am. And I am enough. Today she stood in front of the mirror for the first time and smiled. Once I used to see only you in this mirror. Today for the first time, I am seeing myself. Maybe I was shattered after being separated from you. But now that I am together, I am complete. She opened her old closet. She took out a dusty file that had been locked there for a long time, on which was written, "My dreams." This file was from the time when she used to dream of becoming a creative businesswoman before marriage. Then she got married, and the dreams were placed at her husband's feet. Now those dreams were waking up again. She went to her office. The employees were surprised that their mistress seemed completely changed today. Light in the eyes, calm on the face, and confidence in her steps. "Ma'am, Without your guidance, we were not running anything. But now with your return, everything is going in the right direction. I smiled. From now on, I will make every decision myself. This business is no longer just a business. It is the identity of every woman who has completed herself without anyone's name. She launched a new project, named Cootie. This project was for women who have become helpless in society due to divorce, loneliness, or betrayal. At the press conference, she said, "The day a woman learns to believe in herself, that day she is no longer a compulsion of any man, but becomes a light in herself." People applauded. But more precious than this applause was the silence, which was echoing as confidence within a shattered woman. On the other side, the husband was in his small room, looking at this headline in the newspaper. "Wife declares her power to the world." There were tears in his eyes. But now there was no point in regretting. He had lost everything. Not money, not respect, not that woman, whom he never understood. It was the first anniversary of the Cootie Foundation. The hall was filled with fragrance. On the walls were pictures of women who, after suffering divorce, oppression, loneliness, or betrayal, were now living a new life. The wife stood on the stage. Now she was not just an ex-wife of her husband, but had become the strength of hundreds of women. Today I dedicate this foundation to all those women who stayed awake at night and cried, but in the morning they faced the world with a smile. You are all strong, and I am always there for you. Applause was ringing, but at the back door of the same hall, a man stood silently. The same husband, torn old clothes, a weak figure, and eyes downcast to the ground. Someone recognized his face. "Hey, is this the same person whom that woman left?" "Yes, the same one. He is nothing now." The husband peeked in through the door of the hall. His eyes got wet. The woman who used to follow him around. Today she was standing on the stage, and people were greeting her. His wife's eyes also fell on the door. Saw her. A moment of silence fell. The past came before her eyes. The betrayal, the loneliness, all those nights when she could sigh. A smile came to her lips. No mockery, no hatred, just a silent victory. She leaned towards Mike and said, "Sometimes life gives us people who break us, just so we can learn the art of putting ourselves back together." Tears fell from the husband's eyes. He looked away and started to leave. He knew he was no longer in any of this woman's pages. The wife didn't look back, because now her direction was not the past, but the future. It was evening. The wife was sitting in the office of her foundation, Cody, looking at a file, but her mind was elsewhere. Just then the door opened. A girl entered crying, hair disheveled, eyes red, and lips trembling. "Ma'am, I want to meet you. I haven't found anyone to listen. Only you are left." The wife immediately gave her water, shut her up, and made her sit next to her. "What is your name?" "Ma'am." The girl bowed her head and replied, "What else happened, Maham?" Maham slowly began to tell his story. "There is a madam in my office. Very beautiful. She was my role model. She always said that a woman should have confidence in herself, that she should never be at the mercy of men. I wanted to be like her." The wife was listening, but something inside was starting to sting. Maham said, crying, "Then one day she introduced me to her boyfriend, said that she would take you to the next level. But then, everything changed. They tried to do everything to me. That, when I raised my voice, that madam started saying, 'This is the world, baby. This is how you get success here.'" The same old face turned in the wife's eyes. Feber, the same secretary, who had ruined her home, was now going to swallow another innocent girl. The wife gently held Mahim's hand. "I won't let you break. Whoever did this to you will not be able to save herself now." The next day, the Cootie team started collecting the complete data of Mahim's office. CCTV footage and all the legal proof. And this time, the wife went herself. She went to the same office and stood in front of the same secretary, Risha, who now called herself CO. Risha's eyes widened in surprise. You. Why did you come here? The wife said calmly. Because now you are not just an enemy of a man. You have also become an enemy of a woman. And now you will have to answer before the law. And before all the girls you wanted to make like you. Risha started laughing. What will you do? What will you get from all this? The wife stepped forward and said, I don't want anything. Just the peace that comes from preserving someone's honor. What you took from me. I won't let anyone else take it. The atmosphere in the court was serious. The media, social workers, members of the Kudi Foundation, and all the women, who were used by faces like Risha, were all present. The reports presented in the court, the CCTV footage, and Maham's written statement were enough to put Risha in the dock. The judge called his wife to testify. She stood calmly, the same dignity on her face, as if there was no wound, no fear. She leaned into the microphone and said, My lord, today I have not come here to testify against just one accused. I am standing here against an idea, which makes a woman an enemy of another woman, which makes her a symbol of beauty, body, and conspiracy. And I want today this court should not only reject that idea, but punish it. There was silence in the court. The wife continued, Risha, not my husband, broke my trust, not my office, destroyed my belief. And now the same hands were going to ruin the life of a new girl, Maham. But this time, she was not silent. This time we all spoke. And this speaking will not stop now. Risha was smiling sarcastically. But that smile was about to turn into a helpless scream. The judge, while pronouncing the verdict, said, The court recognizes that a woman named Risha, by taking undue advantage of her position and influence, has not only damaged the trust of Maham but also of other women. She is sentenced to 1 year in prison and a fine of 5 lakh rupees. At the same time, the court appreciates the efforts of the Kudi Foundation, which is working for true justice and respect in the society. There was silence in the courtroom. Then, as if someone had clapped heartily, and every hand began to clap, there were tears in Maham's eyes. But those tears were now of gratitude, not of fear. Risha was handcuffed, her screams echoing, You will get nothing. You are all spectators. But the wife turned silently and walked out, because now her purpose had been accomplished. London, United Nations Women's Conference. The Kudi Foundation was being awarded this year's most impactful women-led organization. There were representatives from all over the world in the hall. Everyone wanted to hear this woman, who turned loneliness, betrayal, and ruin into strength, not weapons. She was introduced on stage. Please welcome the woman who turned her broken past into a healing platform for thousands. The founder of Kudi Foundation. She moved towards the stage step by step. Someone said, Isn't this the one whose husband left her? Another said, No, this is the one who then cleaned herself up and raised thousands. He took the mic, and in an English voice that echoed in the hall, he touched hearts with every word. When the world tried to break me, I built a bridge from my pain and walked over it with pride. Applause rang out. After the program, he met a person backstage. A calm, dignified and soft-spoken businessman. Name, Ayaz Malik. Pakistani origin, director of a famous NGO. I have been watching your work for years, but today, the power I saw in your eyes is perhaps no less than a revolution. He smiled. Power comes when the pain is over, and the eyes stop complaining. Ayaz said slowly, I want us to work together on some big projects. For women. For children. That are not just local but have a global impact. She remained silent, Then after a moment said, I'm looking for a partner, not a relative. Ayaz smiled. I'm not asking for a relationship, just permission to walk with you on the path. Upon returning to Pakistan, the Coady Foundation was now moving towards a new destination. Ayaz and his wife together started Coady Global, with the aim of to give every oppressed woman the language she deserves, the language of truth, the language of self-control. Maham and other affected women had now become trainers themselves. The wife was now a leader and Ayaz a true shadow. People would now say when they saw them both, maybe Allah had written better for this woman. That's why he showed her the wrong people first so that she would learn to recognize. And later when respect came, so that she wouldn't lose it. It was raining. The man, soaking in the cold, stood at the door of the Coady Foundation. His hair was white, his clothes were dirty, a shadow of regret on his face, and a silent plea in his eyes. This was the same husband who had once left his wife, considering her weak. Today he was knocking on the same door, to which he had sworn never to come. The girl at the reception announced inside, Ma'am, a man has come outside. He says he is your husband. There was silence for a moment. Then the wife closed her eyes and said only this, sit him down, but don't give him tea. This honor is only for those who are with you. The husband came in, taking slow steps, as if each step was burdened with shame. He sat down in front and lowered his eyes. I know I've lost you everything. I hurt you, betrayed you. And now that I've thrown everything away, I've come back. Just to ask for a chance. The wife took a deep breath, looked at him silently, and then stood up from her chair. You want a chance? Why? To break me again? Or to sit on my shoulders and get your dignity back? The husband said, crying, I don't want anything. I just want to sit at your feet and apologize once. The wife was silent for a few moments, then came closer to him, and said slowly, when you broke my heart, no one heard my voice. Today your tears are also silent. This is justice. Tears filled the husband's eyes. Will you never forgive me? The wife looked up at the sky, and said softly, I forgave you the day you walked out of my life. But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It's just that you can't hurt me anymore. She pointed to the reception. The door is open. You can go. But the respect, love, and relationship you left behind, you will never get back. The husband bowed his head, turned quietly, and left silently. This time the door was not closed for him, because now its importance had completely disappeared. It was a cold night. Outside the Coady Foundation, a young woman was sitting on the ground, shaking, wrapped in a blanket with her infant child. There was no sleep in her eyes, but fear. Her face was yellow, her lips were dry, and the child was clutched to her chest, as if the only weapon to save her from all the troubles in the world was a mother's touch. At that moment, the wife came out of the office and was heading towards her car, when she heard a weak moan. Child, save. My child will die. The wife immediately rushed towards it. In front of her, a young mother was lying on the ground. There were slap marks on her face, and the seal of poverty on her existence. The wife immediately called her staff. Get out of the car, let's take it to the hospital. Immediately. A few hours later, in the hospital ward, the woman was now breathing calmly. His wife was sitting on a chair next to him. The baby was sleeping next to the bed. What's your name? Zainab. What happened to you? Where's your husband? Tears started flowing from Zainab's eyes. He used to say the baby wasn't his. He used to beat me, abuse me, and finally, he kicked me out of the house one day. Let's just say, I don't have the right to live in my house with someone else's baby. His wife's eyes got wet, but she controlled herself. Have you ever had a DNA test? No. I didn't even have money for 2 meals a day. What were you thinking? What would you do? His wife held his hand. Now you're not alone, Zainab. This baby is not your weakness. It will become your strength. And you won't be just a helpless mother. You too will make your own identity, just like me. Zainab looked at him in surprise. Did you also go through something like this? The wife replied with a faint smile. Yes, I was also on the street one day. But now, I have become a shelter. And I will not let you fall. A few days later, Zainab was given a small job at the Kudi Foundation. A nurse was provided to take care of the child. And along with that, an expert lawyer filed her case in court. That the husband, who had taken her out on the basis of deceit and suspicion, would not only apologize, but also return both the expenses and honor. Zainab hugged someone for the first time and said, "Thank you. You not only gave me shelter, you gave me back my trust." It was the day of the court. There was a strange calm on Zainab's face. She was no longer afraid, but had become a confident and proud woman. Her wife was with her, like a mother, a sister, a friend. The judge, after hearing the case, pronounced the verdict. All the charges against Zainab Bibi have been proven to be baseless. The court orders Zainab's husband to pay the court's apology, financial expenses, and all the expenses of the child. Also, the court issues a stern warning for pushing Zainab out. Tears began to flow from Zainab's eyes. But those tears were no longer of weakness, but of victory. She held her wife's hand tightly and said, "If it weren't for you, then I would still be lying on the corner of this street today. You are not just a woman. You are my help from Allah." The wife smiled. "Now you yourself are helping someone. That's all the debt." 2 days later, the wife was busy in her office when a postman left with a letter. The letter read, "Name yours, but the pen is mine. The last greeting of a broken person." It was a letter from the husband, whom she had left behind years ago. The wife held her heart and opened the letter. "Greetings. I have not come to ask for your love, nor to call myself oppressed. I just want to say one thing. When you lose you, then you know that a woman is not just a body. She is a roof, a prayer, a light. I am sick now, I may not live long. But I have one wish. That if you ever pray for me, then just say this. May Allah forgive him just as I did. Yours, the one who could never be yours." The wife closed the letter. A silent dampness filled her heart. No laughter, no tears. Just a prayerful silence, in which she said to Allah, "I have forgiven him. You do it too." At that moment he went to a church and lit a candle, not to a name, not to a relationship, but to the power that forgives without seeking revenge. Paris, France. Women of the World Conference 2030. This time, Kudi Foundation was being honored. Global voice of resilience. The wife took the stage. And when her name was called, the applause echoed like the waves of an ocean. On stage, a famous author, Emily Jean, announced, "We want this woman, who turned loneliness into strength, who gave women not just language, but dignity, to tell her story to the world. A book that is based on truth. A book that gives hope to women in every corner of the world. A book called, I Raised Myself from Myself." The hall fell silent. The wife silently walked towards the microphone. Her voice was trembling, but her tone was firm. "I never thought that the tears in my eyes could be healing for someone. My silence could be a voice for someone. But if my story could save one woman from falling, then yes, I will write. Every word, every wound, every truth. No veil, no lie. Because if the truth can save, then it is a duty to speak it." A few months later, the first copy of the book was in the wife's hands. The name was, I Raised Myself from the Dead. From Silence to Selfhood. On the cover of the book was her picture, in which she was standing in a simple dress, and holding the hand of a little girl in her hand. That girl was Zainab's daughter, because the wife had decided the first proceeds of this book would be dedicated to mothers like Zainab. A reporter asked at the launch event, "If your husband were alive, would you give him this book?" The wife thought for a moment, then said slowly, "Yes, but I would keep a letter with it, which would have read, 'This is the result of the part you left behind. Thank you. You broke it, only then could I connect.'" 2 in the morning the phone rang. The wife woke up in shock. The number was unknown. Her heart pounded, but she picked up the call. On the other side, there was a serious male voice. "What you are doing is against our interests. This book, these speeches, this empowerment of women. Stop all of this. You have no idea how many great people your language has disturbed their sleep." The wife listened and asked calmly, "And if I don't stop?" After the silence, only one sentence came. "Then your silence will be forever." The phone hung up. The wife was silent for a moment. Then she smiled softly and wrote on her bedside notepad, "If my voice has reached the ears of my enemies, then perhaps my path is right." The next morning, there was a commotion in the foundation office. The night's news had leaked. Some volunteers were scared. Some were ready to back down. Ayaz, who had now become the organization's global partner, "We need security. This is not just a threat, this is a declaration against the system." The wife simply said, "The day a woman is stopped from speaking, understand that society is dead. And I will not let her be buried." 2 days later, a protest had started outside the Coady building. Some people, who belonged to unknown organizations, stood with placards. "Coady is teaching women to rebel. It is working against our traditions. Stop inciting wives against their husbands," Ayaz said. "This is all a plan. Some big political or business group is against you." The wife went to the door silently and tore up the placard with her hand, which read, "This woman is defaming." Then she said in front of everyone, "If you are hurt by my truth, then it is not mine but your intention that is sick. I do not teach women to rebel. I only remind them of the power that you have taken away from them for centuries." That evening, another threatening envelope was received. "Next time there will be no protest at your door. There will be a fire," Ayaz said. "It has become dangerous. Maybe we will have to take a break for a while." The wife said, "If I stop, then those who have always trained women to be silent will win. And I will never repeat that lesson." It was Friday. The Coady office was holding a regular session. His wife, Zainab, Ayaz, and several volunteers were present. On the ground floor, the young man was sitting. Beggar. Age: about 45 years old. Having been working as a guard at the gate for the past 7 years. He didn't speak much, just silently protected everyone. He especially recognized the eyes of those who looked at his wife. That day too, he sat at the gate, keeping an eye on those who came and went as usual. Just then, a suspicious motorcyclist came and stopped. Someone had a sack in his hand. Someone had a black veil on his face. Shabir immediately stood up and said, "Brother, who do you want to meet?" The motorcyclist said only one word, "Finished." And the next moment, the sack was thrown to the ground. Shabir's eyes fell on the timer inside the sack. There was a bomb. But he didn't back down. Shabir lifted the sack with all his strength, clung it to his body, and at that moment ran behind the wall. An explosion occurred. The ground shook. Glasses broke. The office windows shook. But no one upstairs got a scratch. His wife ran downstairs, and the scene in front of her was breathtaking. Shabir had fallen to the ground. His body was burned, but his face was calm, as if saying, I have done my duty. Zainab screamed. Shabir, brother. Ayaz held his wife. The wife came close to his face and said, You saved me. And I never called you my own. You were a voiceless loyalist, Shabir. And today you became a voice and gave your life. 3 days later, thousands of people gathered outside the Kudi Foundation carrying candles. Shabir's funeral was held in the foundation's courtyard. This was his service place. This has now become his final resting place. The wife sat by his grave and said only one sentence. You were the protector, who died without longing for love. But we will always keep you alive. That night, the wife wrote in her diary, In a society where the protectors of truth start dying, every lie starts screaming there. But we will not bow down. Because people like Shabir do not let us bow down. Immediate FR in case of harassment and intimidation. Legal support for women workers to protect them. And those men who are martyred while protecting women should be declared national heroes. The hall erupted in applause. Ayaz immediately announced, We will collect 1 million signatures and take this bill to Parliament. This is not just a law. Shabir's debt is owed to all of us. A few weeks later, Kudi Foundation had signature campaign banners outside. Women, men, children of all ages were coming. Zainab, Maham, and hundreds of women stood with placards in their hands. This law is our right. Protection of every daughter, in memory of every Shabir. Ayaz came to his wife and said, We are being heard in Parliament, and soon the committee will invite us. This is not just a protest. It is going to be history. The wife looked silently at Shabir's picture, which was hanging at the entrance of the office. I promise, Shabir, because of your sacrifice, no other woman will die alone. Now the law will become our language. That same night a call came. From Parliament. You are being called to the committee. Present your position. And if it is feasible, then the Shabir bill will be passed. The wife hung up the phone, and wiping tears from her eyes, silently picked up the file, on which was typed, Draft Law for the Protection of Women. Shabir Protection Bill 2030. A meeting of the National Assembly's Special Committee. It was Wednesday, and the House was filled with government ministers, opposition leaders, legal experts, and women representatives. The chairman allowed the wife to speak. On the table in front of her, she placed her prepared draft. Shabir Tahaffuz Bill 2030. She stood up and raised her voice for the first time in this building, where for years, women's voices had been ignored as tradition. Honorable members, this bill is not for any politics, personal gain or fame. It is in exchange for a grave. The answer to the sacrifice of a protector like Shabir, and the right of all those women who do not get justice even after dying every day. We want security should be provided to every welfare institution, immediate arrest in case of threat or attack on women, and official honors should be given to the martyred protectors. There was silence in the House, but suddenly an assembly member stood up. Madam, if we make the protection of every woman a law, then will men be considered criminals? Do you want men to always be criminals and women to always be victims? Some members applauded. The wife calmly looked at the man, and holding the microphone said, No, sir. I want that if a woman speaks the truth, she should not be called a liar. I want that if a man is a Shabir, then he should be considered a hero. And if a man abuses, threatens or tortures a woman, then he should not be called a man, but should be called a criminal. Asterisk asterisk. This law is not against men. It is against oppression. The entire House erupted in applause. The women members stood up from their seats and appreciated his speech. The chairman announced, This bill will be presented in the next meeting of the committee, and if it is passed, then it will be the first women protection bill in the history of the country. which will be in the name of the sacrifice of a man. That evening, the wife lit a lamp on Shabir's grave, and said softly, "You were gone, but your honor gave the courage to become a law. Now this country will not run only in the name of men, in the name of protectors." The time had come to vote on the Shabir Protection Bill 2030. In the upper house, all eyes were on the chairman. His wife was sitting silently in the gallery. She had a picture of Shabir in her hands, and a river of tears in her eyes, but complete peace in her heart. The chairman called out, "Those who are in favor of the bill, raise your hands." Hands went up, one by one, and in a few moments, the house erupted in applause. The chairman announced, "The Shabir Protection Bill is passed by majority vote. This law is now part of the state of Pakistan." The house stood up. The wife stood still. This moment was not for any one woman. This moment was the answer to centuries of suffering. That evening, in an interview, the wife was asked, "Are you satisfied now?" After a few moments of silence, he said, "No, not satisfied, because there are still many Zainabs left. Many Shabirs are still ready to become protectors. But yes, now I am sure that my daughter, your daughter, and every daughter of this country is no longer alone. Now there is a law with her, and behind that law is the prayer of a mother, the sacrifice of a protector, and the boldness of a woman." A few months later, the Kudi Foundation had now become an international organization. Its branch in every city, its mention in every book, the prayer of that woman in every heart. One day Zainab came to her wife with her daughter. The wife sat on the ground, took the girl in her arms, and said, "You are like Shabir's daughter. No one can break you now." The girl innocently asked, "Who are you, auntie?" The wife laughed and replied, "Me. I am the one whom everyone left alone, but who awakened so much womanhood within her, that she became the mother of an entire nation." The last scene. A room, a diary and a pen. The wife writes the last page of her last diary. "I am the woman whose husband once took away her identity, but I took my identity out of the rubble of his infidelity. Now my identity is neither wife nor widow. Now I am just one word. Selfless. ****.